Welcome, everybody, to DCPC Live presents Zine Support, the podcast that highlights the unsung heroes of the music scene. Recording engineers, show promoters, record labels, graphic artists, photographers, zine writers, sound people, and more. I'm your host, Scott Pasch, owner and operator of DCPC Live, a DIY record label specializing in hardcore, punk, ska, and metal shows on short-run vinyl. I have 30 years of experience playing hardcore drums in areas like DC, Florida, and New York, and I've also been booking and promoting shows. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of amazing talent, and one of them in particular that I've met is our guest today, Craig Mazer. Did I pronounce that right, Craig?
Nailed it.
Excellent. Craig is a longtime champion of the DIY punk scene who's been showing his support locally with the Foreign Dissent in Orlando, Florida since 2014. Craig has been running this unique international showcase that features bands from around the world as they make their way to the fest in Gainesville. Foreign Dissent specifically highlights international acts without local support bands, giving those touring musicians an additional platform during their time in the United States. And what started as Craig's vision to support international bands has grown into something truly special. Over the past decade, Foreign Dissent has not only provided these bands with additional performance opportunities, but it also given lovers of unprecedented access to international acts they would have never discovered otherwise. The showcase has been so successful that similar events have sprouted across Florida, creating an informal pre-fest tour circuit for international bands. As Craig prepares for Foreign Dissent's 10th anniversary in 2025, we're excited to dive into his punk rock journey and learn what inspired him to create this vital platform for international punk music. Take a breath, Scott. Woo! Hey, Craig.
Wow. Dude, that's impressive. I don't know. Maybe just end it there and we'll call this a win.
Done. That's it. I advertised it. It's over.
Killed it. Yeah, at least this way I can't, say anything stupid. So, no, it was a great intro.
Well, thank you. So, you've been doing this since 2014. I definitely went to several of your Foreign Dissents prior to, say, 2019. 2019 is the first time I ever managed to get up to Fest. Fest is great, but it's a distance, 4 days off, 2 days off of work, time, money, etc. Married with 2 kids, I could never quite swing it. But you always provided me a way to enjoy Fest without going to Fest. But once I started going to Fest, I'm like, well, I can't go out to Foreign Dissent this week. I'm already going to be gone for 4 days. I just can't. That's untenable. So I stopped going to your events because I was now going to the Fest because I just couldn't. I couldn't wrap it all. It's it's too much.
Your success is my loss.
Well,
no, that's great. If I had to pick between 3 days of the Fest in Gainesville and one night of Foreign Dissent in Orlando, I'd go to the Fest too.
I appreciate the humility, but you put on some.
Though, so
Yeah. So, do you ever go to Fest yourself?
Since Fest 7, I've been to every Fest except Fest 8 because a friend decided to have his wedding that I had to be in. And I just learned going to Fest 7 how much I loved it. And then the very next year to not be able to go. But since then, we've gone every year. Every year.
That friend. You still talk to that friend?
Oh, God. He died.
I'm
real
sorry.
Talk.
God, I'm an asshole now.
He would be laughing so hard if he could be listening to this and how this just went. He'd find that hilarious. So, no, R.I.P. Brett, best dude ever. Love that guy.
My condolences, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Had to, when I was in touring bands, I've had to put weddings in the tour block before. I toured it from DC, and we went to through New England, and we all had to take a day off on a Saturday or a Sunday so I could go to my friend's wedding in New Haven, Connecticut or something like that. I was like, okay, everybody, you go hang out in the city. I'm going to go to a wedding. And they're like, really? Yep. I was like, yeah, this is the wedding I can't. There's weddings you can go, no, I gotta go to this one.
If I could have gotten out of this one, I would have, but it was not. That was
totally understand.
Yeah.
So, before we dig into Foreign Dissent, you have a long pedigree. If I recall from our conversation during Florida Underground's Fest at Will's Pub, you talked about doing even a zine. I think it might have been called Impact or something.
Yeah. I did Impact Press for 10 years. My journey as a non-musician being connected to punk, started when I was a kid and fell in love with punk rock, but also I grew up being bullied a lot. And so punk rock in a way was an escape. And when I got to college and what felt like escaping that bullying that took place in grade school, is I found my people. which were other people, other kids. I mean, we were 18, 19 years old discovering punk rock together. And so in 1993, we realized that the records, the CDs that we were paying, $10 for at the record stores in Orlando, we could get at wholesale prices if we started a record mail order. And so we could get CDs for $6.75. I remember that very specifically. And that was huge. I mean, even then, CDs might have been going for more like 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we signed up to be a distributor through Mortem Records, which allowed us access to Alternative Tentacles, Kill Rock Stars, Lookout Records, which was the big one for us. We were all huge into Screeching Weasel and that kind of stuff back then. And so, yeah, we started this record mail order, which was like inviting kids over to our apartment down the street from University of Central Florida. And we had a loft and a record player, and you could come listen to the records before you bought them.
Wow.
And we'd go out to shows and sell records, out of boxes. And then we decided to start advertising it. So we were putting ads in Maximum Rock and Roll. We had a mailing list of 800 people at the height of what was called Inbred Records.
Okay.
And we put out 1.5 releases. So the one release is a band called The Leftovers. They were out of Jupiter, Florida. They sounded like the vocalist was pretty whiny sounding, but they had a real Operation Ivy sound to them.
Okay.
We put out a 7-inch and they broke up right before the 7-inch came out.
I've experienced
how
that,
this
trust
goes.
me.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Anyone who's put out records, it's like the jinx. Like, You're so stoked. You put all this effort, these months of work, and for us, like scraping pennies together to be able to do it, and then they broke up. And then we had the half of releases. We'd gotten involved with Beach Recordings out in California, which was putting out a bunch of ska back then. If I remember correctly, the guy that ran it was closely connected with Skank and Pickle and those guys. And I don't even remember how we connected, but he wanted to do a split comp. And so we got tracks. This was 1994, I think. And we got tracks from Less Than Jake. I mean, this was super early Less Than Jake.
Wow.
Blue Meanies, Holsteins, which was an Orlando ska band that were amazing. So, but the dude ghosted us for so long that we no longer had the money we had committed. We'd already sent him the DATs, like he had the recordings. And when he contacted us like 3 or 4 months later, like, hey, where's the $500? We were like, dude, we're out. And so we never knew what had actually happened because obviously he was pissed. And then someone found the CD in a record store, and he must have already pressed it before we bounced because it said Inbred Records on the actual CD.
So he had already pressed it and came to you for the money, and then you said, "Oh, you waited too long.
Dude,
we don't know how
we've
to
been
save money
trying to
because we're
reach
kids."
you. Yeah, 100% that. Like we didn't have money. It was my buddy who really fronted it, and by then that money was gone. So,
and I get that. I've actually had bands tell me before because I generally cover like the recording costs since you don't know how a live recording is going to go. And Josh gives me really great rates, so I do the mixing and mastering to maintain like a consistency of sound because people often question live albums. And then like usually I send the band a rough mix, and I want them to say yay or nay. And if they say nay, whatever, I'm out with a little bit of money that was, and I don't stress it. But if they say yay, and I go through the full process to get it mastered, then I usually say, okay, I need you to buy X number of buy-in because buying them at cost is, I've already covered all that front end. That's your royalty, and you don't have the $1,500 to press 100 records. But if you give me 300 or 400 spread out over payments, then you got it. And then one band said, oh, could you wait? We don't really have the money right now. I was like, yeah, it's fine. And then I came back 3 months. I was like, oh, no, we went into the studio, so we don't have any money to do this now. And I was like, but you asked me to wait, and I've already spent hundreds of dollars. And I know it's only hundreds, but, like, my budget's razor thin. So hundreds is hundreds to me.
Yeah.
I that tripled my loss that if they'd said no earlier to then. So I get it. It does happen. So real quick, though. So when you're buying stuff at wholesale, did you have to buy, like, 50 or 20 or 100? Like, were you couldn't just buy one at $6.75 and claim you're like
there were no limits. No, you could buy one. You could buy one Green Day 7-inch from Lookout. Yeah, 100%. That's why, like, when we realized that we could do this, we were like, why wouldn't we do this? You just had to get approved. And I mean,
why isn't everyone doing that?
I don't know how it is today. I mean, this was 30 years ago, dude. So I'm imagining everything's different now. But back then, like, we were just, me in particular, and the reason why I've always been active in music one way or another is I'm pretty driven. So, like, I'm that person where, like, in my regular job, like, I want to know what the next steps are. What's our action item? How are we going to get this done? That's how I've always been, whether it was side project or my job. So, like, the record thing, we would see ads in Maximum Rock and Roll about Mortem Records being a distributor. And so I just called them and was like, hey, what does it take? And they're like, no, maybe we had to spend $50 or $100, but there was you did not have to take multiples of anything.
So you could spend $100 across multiple artists. Like
there were like 15 labels.
I mean, it's just almost like you and your buddies just found a way to buy records at half count. You just kept them for yourselves if you wanted to.
Oh, it was the main impetus for it was to get records cheaper for ourselves because we were going nuts buying records. Like we were just, it was that time for all of us where we were like the scene was blossoming. I mean, early 90s, there was a lot of cool stuff. And for me,
I was 16 in 92, so we're like the same thing. Like it was, and I was in DC and I was like, all I could do was like,
you were in DC, yeah.
I was Northern Virginia, Fairfax, but like there was that beauty of going to the record stores, like especially the Discord records, where they would say pay no more than this on the back, and I'm like, screw you, Kent Mill Records. It says that I have to pay this much, and I'm going to go to the Record Convergence in Fairfax where they don't rip me off and they actually follow what Ian says to do.
Well, you could have come to the Inbred Records house in Orlando, Florida, and we would not have ripped you off. We were selling barely for markup just to like cover any of our incidental costs. Like it was an awesome time. We had a ton of fun. It was great. And it really gave me exposure to a ton of music. And at the same time, I started getting into like publishing and writing, which ended up leading to Impact Press.
Leading to the Zine.
Yeah.
And did you ever like run a punk rock blog doing reviews or like on website when the interweb came around? Did you say, okay, let me take this digital, or did you?
Yeah. Before Impact, I was writing record reviews at UCF for the Central Florida Future, which was the campus newspaper. And actually, the thing that was one of like the big moments in my life was when Central Florida Future decided to run advertising for an anti-abortion organization and a Holocaust denial organization in the same issue. And I said, y'all, fuck this. I can remember the day so clearly. Back then on the campus of UCF, like you could actually make local phone calls from like hallway phones. And I called the Central Florida Future office and I'm like, what, like y'all, how is this? Like I'm rounding up all media tonight. I'm getting any of the writers from the future to get together and sign a petition. We went that afternoon. We went up to the offices. I think it was President Dr. Hitt's first or second year as president of UCF. He retired a few years ago, but he ultimately ended up being there for like 25 years of changing UCF. And we went up to his office, and the secretary was like, "Wait 1 minute." And it was me and my buddy Justin. Justin probably had green hair down to his shoulders. Like we were little snotty punks.
Sure, I understand.
And she's like, okay, he'll see you now. And so the two of us sat down in this massive conference room with the president of UCF saying like, why is the UCF paper? And they took a lot of shit because they took a stand. And it was an independent paper. So the Orlando Sentinel ended up doing an editorial saying, why is UCF taking a stand against an independent newspaper? They should be allowed to do what they want. It was a whole thing. I had the media out that night for our staff meeting where we had a petition signed. It ultimately led me to starting a competitor newspaper. So me and 4 other friends decided to start a newspaper at UCF that lasted about a year and a half.
Dude,
it was
you have
really
DIY
hard
punk rock
to do.
in your blood. I mean, you start your own distro, you start your own label, you start your own newspaper. Like, you are the epitome of, like, fucking yes. Like, we haven't even gotten into what you're doing now. But, dude, seriously.
Yeah, it's wild, and, like, leading up to this, I know I've probably said a lot of stuff about feeling like I don't deserve to be on here. And it's a weird thing as a guy who I'm 51 now. and I can look back at my body of work and go like, oh shit, yeah, like I did some shit,
Yeah.
be proud of that. And at the same time, I have this sort of feeling that says, you know, I'm not really deserving. But on paper, I mean, yeah, I don't know what, it's not like anyone showed me what being DIY meant other than punk rock.
Sure.
And so like those first couple years at UCF were first like a lot of freedom from like the identity I had in grade school, and just developing this idea of wanting to be connected to a community, which is what this podcast is so about.
Yes.
I mean, I you know, for me, you know, there was never money to be made. You know, the magazine. So UCF Imprint ended in 1995. I left it before it ended because I'd graduated UCF and I didn't want to still be involved in a UCF newspaper if I wasn't a student there anymore. But right away I was like, I need to do something else. And so like it always just drove me. I wanted to stay connected in some way to music. And even though Impact Press was a political magazine for the most part, all my ads were record labels.
Sure.
Like all my ads were record labels. And so in order to be able to like get that stream of funding to try to make it even financially possible to publish this magazine, we had a review section called Quickies. Okay. And it was like 6-point font, maybe about 7 or 8, maybe 8 pages out of, I think we were doing issues that were around 48 pages. Yeah, that's how I could afford to do it. I mean, I never made money doing Impact, 100% lost money, but you know, there were several years where it was at least breaking even, which was cool. And I was doing 10,000 copies. They were all free, distributed all over the United States, totally DIY. I would find people, gosh, I don't even remember so 1996 is when I started it. The internet was like usable, but it wasn't great yet. I didn't have a website for the magazine until 98, and I built that myself by going to a website that I liked, looking at the source code and copying the source code, and then changing the source code. So like I taught myself HTML, and funny enough, I ended up kind of in that space as a career. But you know, doing Impact was another way. I mean, from 1993 until 2006, I could go to any show in Orlando for free. So I was, because I just had connections at all these labels, sure, like through whether it was writing reviews at the Central Florida Future, then running the newspaper UCF Imprint at UCF, and then right away doing Impact. So it was really cool. I mean, and there's other stuff going on. You know, I can happy to talk to you about Shyster and booking a national tour for them in '97. And
so you've done show bookings. Was it just for Shyster or for other bands too?
Mostly so it started for Shyster. I was a super fanboy of Shyster back in '95. I was dating a girl who was good friends with them, and that's how I met them. And I became best friends with their lead singer, guitarist, and still am to this day. And like I said, I mean, I just always had that drive to like get shit done. And you know this as a band, if you have some fan or someone who like wants to help and genuinely can, you're going to be like, yes, please. Yeah. And so I used Book Your Own Fucking Life magazine to
I remember that, used it all the time.
I was making phone calls, right? Like this, I don't think I was emailing much, maybe a little bit. I think by 95 I had email. But a lot of phone calls. I think Mike from Shyster still has the binder that we made. Wow. I think it was like 40 dates. They went all the way over to like North Dakota, and so that was my first time booking a tour. I think I did 2 tours for them, a national tour and a regional tour. And then I didn't book tours again until 2012. So I took quite a break.
Big difference. Because I did runs in the 90s and then bunches of runs in the 2000s. And I remember how things changed. It's like, okay, I'm going from making phone calls to now I'm doing emails to now I'm doing like AOL Instant Messenger to now I'm doing MySpace messages to like the last tour I did with Colin Dead where I'm like, okay, now I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. But it's so much easier than in the 90s when I had to like cold call places and
Totally.
write bands. And Book Your Own Fucking Life is basically what allowed that to even happen, because it
I
showed you
wouldn't have
people
been
that
able
were
to do
interested
it.
in helping you. Because how would I have known who in Boston wanted to help me without that?
No,
Because
there
there was
was
no way
no
to
way.
like look
Yeah.
up bands. Like Book Your Own Fucking Life was it.
It was amazing. I mean, we were listed as a crash pad. I mean, we had many bands stay at that same Inbred Records house. We became friends with Tilt. They were a band that stayed with
Oh
us
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple times.
I
And
played with Cinder's other band, Retching Red, a couple times. We did a
oh,
split
nice.
7-inch with them. So
Yeah, they were amazing people. I got to meet a hero of mine, Pete Rippian from Crimp Shrine, because he was
nice.
playing in Tilt for one of the times that they came through Orlando. And yeah, I mean, Book Your Own Fucking Life helped all those connections happen. It made me feel like I had a place
Yep.
as a person who, leaving high school, didn't know that was possible. And so, and that's just continued with me over the years of finding ways to stay connected to the community.
Okay, and this sounds like a great moment now. Connected to community. Let's move into Foreign Dissent here. All right,
Yeah.
so it's 2014. That's your first one, right? What
Yep.
what is the impetus to this idea of creating a no local support, all international band showcase on like is it a Monday night?
Yeah, it's a Monday.
On a Monday
Yeah.
night. Okay, like I'm gonna do this amazing thing. It's gonna be a Monday night. Bands that people have never heard of and no local support, and it's gonna be great. We're gonna do this. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty stupid, right? So I'll give a little bit of backstory, and I tend to be long in the tooth, so
Please,
jump
go
in
ahead.
and shut me down. But in 2012, I booked a tour, maybe it was like 16, 20 date run for the New Lows, which was a band that was members of Shyster. And as you probably know, being in a band and booking tours, when you book a tour, any band that's involved in helping you with a date in their town is 100% going to be hitting you up for a date in the town
yeah.
you live in when they're coming through. So over the next 2 years, I was just booking shows. I had really never booked local shows prior to then, but because of this 2012 tour.
Sure.
And then in 2013, I booked a short run, I think it was about 10 days, for a Philly band called Ex Friends. It was former members of Plow United. And the reason that came about is because the dude from Plow United, who is in Ex Friends, he helped me out with a New Lows date in Philly, but I annoyed him so much to get that date that he came to me and was like, "You annoyed me so thoroughly to get this date. I bet you'd do a great job booking a tour for us." And it's always pretty like hilarious, this
awesome.
thing that annoyed the shit out of him. Also, he saw as something valuable.
He saw your tenaciousness and said, "I want that on my side."
100%. Yeah. So I had a lot of bands coming through town. So later 2012, early 2013, I was starting to book shows, and so Will's Pub knew about me as a promoter in town. I wasn't really trying to like take on things I didn't have to, but they hit me up this one day in summer of 2014 and said, "Hey, there's this band called Laura Palmer. Would you be interested in promoting a show for them? They're heading to the fest." And I was like, I don't know, sounds like a singer-songwriter. It's not really my thing, but I decided to listen anyway. And it was a 3-piece out of Australia. Their name was a play on Twin Peaks, which was a show I didn't watch, but is the main character. And I listened to them. I'm like, holy shit, this band's incredible. Yeah, I want to book them. They're from Australia. And I was like, okay, they're heading to Fest. And I wish I could remember like what in my brain said, you should do all foreign bands. But I thought of the name immediately. I thought of the poster design immediately. Like I had and so what I did is I went to the Fest website and I started to listen to all the internet, because by July, everything had been confirmed.
Sure.
These days, and we can talk about it, these days I'm starting things way earlier than July. And so I started to pick bands that I liked and contact them. Hey, would you want to play this Monday? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember talking to, I don't know if I should say who, but I talked to someone who's prominent in the Orlando music community about this idea. And he was like, no local support. No, do not. You have to have local support. And I'm like, no, that ruins the idea of the whole show. I can't have local support. And so that stuck with me. Like, I can remember we were at Back Booth at a show when he told me this. And he's a good person. And so I don't want to share his name as some sort of like swipe. But, and he wasn't wrong. I mean, that first year, I think there were like 50 people there. And it is tough because it's on a Monday. But I built that lineup in 2014 with this idea that, you know, I thought it was cool. Did I think it was super risky that it could bomb? Yeah. And was it a success that year? I don't know. The bands thought it was. Sure. Right? Like the difference of what a promoter thinks is a success and what a band thinks is a success, in my experience, are really far apart.
Yes.
Because my expectations for myself is that if it's not a sellout, and I should note, Foreign Dissent's never sold out. If it's not a sellout, it's not success. But if I can pay bands $300 each, they're like, holy shit, this is my first time even being in the U.S. This is my first show in the U.S. and you just gave me $300? Or you brought me in and there are people here singing my songs like we didn't know anyone knew who we were. And I'm in Orlando and we're from Germany, but they know our lyrics. So that 2014, that's how it happened. It was a wacky idea that I really liked, and so I did it.
And I think it's been amazing. And you've been doing it consistently. And I've seen in some of your flyers, even like you have up to like 8 bands. So.
Yeah, that's I do. Maybe to the chagrin of some people who are like, I want to go home. But like, you know, it's tightly run. Sets are 20, 25 minutes. There's a 10-minute turnover because we got full back line. Like you can see 4 bands in 2 or 3 hours. Like you can see a lot in a short amount of time. But yeah, 8 bands is what I prefer to have. It's a less stable show because of the distance folks are traveling and the kind of plans they need to make. Lineups change pretty much every year. This past year, 2014, so Foreign Dissent 9, is the first time I announced the lineup and it didn't change by the time the show happened.
Wow.
The first time of any year.
And speaking of change, I do recall that you had some band from Australia that twice had some problems getting over there. Like there was issues with the whole band one time, I think, and then maybe
Austria,
the drummer.
So Austria, not Australia, easily mistaken as they have many of the same letters. Yeah, Astpai from Austria. And I'm going to look over at my posters, which are all right over here. It would have been way cooler if I set it up for you to see it, but it was Foreign Dissent 2. I had connected with Astpai about playing, and they were all stoked on it. And then I get a message from Zach, the lead singer, guitarist. They're at the airport. It's a photo of 2 of the band members with sad faces, like they posed for it. He's like, so we flew from Austria. We got to Germany where we're connecting, and our plane is broken. I remember that's exactly how he had said it. The plane's broken. He's like, I think I can find a flight for just me that should get me to Orlando by 9 p.m.
Wow.
Maybe I can get to the show in time to do a solo set. And so he totally did. Like he totally flew in, hurried up, got to Will's Pub, did a solo set. It was incredible. And so then it was, let's see, I don't know, 2 or 3 years later, at this time, by like Foreign Dissent 4, I'd never had any repeat bands. And I had kind of made a unspoken rule in my head that I wouldn't have repeats. Because why repeat bands? Like, let's have it new all the time. Sure. And Astapai's also like, rest in peace, Astapai's not with us anymore. They broke up. But it was also at the time one of my girlfriend's favorite bands. And so Zach hit me up and said, hey, Astapai's coming back to Fest. Let's do it right this time. And I'm talking to Stacy about it. I'm like, I don't know, repeat band. She goes, no, it was not the same band last time. It was just Zach. And so I'm like, okay. And I love Astapai too. So like, I really wanted like the full band. So Zach's flying in ahead of the rest of the band with his girlfriend, and they're flying in late. And we'd become friends at that point. We'd hung out with them when they'd been in town a couple of years earlier. And so I pick up food for them because they're getting in super late, and they come over to our apartment after their flight, eat some food. And Zach's like, hey, Craig, there's something I need to tell you. I didn't want to tell you ahead because I didn't want to freak you out, but our drummer has a double ear infection, and the doctor told him he can't fly.
Oh,
He's
no.
like, but don't worry, I'm gonna play drums. And I'm like, you're the lead singer, lead guitarist, but he's like, oh yeah, I play drums. He's like, tomorrow the rest of the band gets in, tomorrow being Monday, the day of Foreign Dissent. He's like, we're gonna do a practice in the hotel room. I'm like, a practice? You don't have drums. Like, he's like, yeah, I'll just have sticks and we'll do it on the bed and we'll figure it out. We met for food the next day for lunch. And his band members were like, kind of like a little sketch, especially the rhythm guitarist who now is having to figure out, like, what do I play?
Sure.
Because he wasn't really prepared to take on the lead parts, and they killed it. Zoc is the lead singer who is usually the lead guitarist playing drums and singing. So for the first time, only time ever in the history of Aspi, they were a three-piece with Zoc on drums. By the next day, they had found someone to jump in to pick up the guitar work. And so they ended up being a four-piece for Fest and other runs. So that was the only time they were a three-piece. And it's awesome. I love the stories with Aspi.
That's awesome.
Zoc's got a new band now called Dirty Talons, and hopefully they can make it through for Foreign Dissent. Maybe even this year. We'll see.
That's super rad. And, as a drummer, I appreciate the fact that they didn't find an actual drummer, but they were able to find a guitarist instead, because it's always hard to find a friggin' drummer.
Yeah, and Zoc's like a serious drummer. He was the drummer for Petrol Girls, a UK band that kind of blew up. And I mean, they were awesome and really successful for a run, and I think they're fully broken up now, which is a bummer because I always wanted them for Foreign Dissent, but I did get to see them in Paris in 2017, I think it was, and they were sick.
That reminds me of like at Florida Underground Fest, where 430 Steps, their drummer hurt his shoulder, so Gustavo had to leave guitar and go back to playing drums, which when I first saw 430 Steps in 2016 or something like that, he was the drummer. So he's perfectly super accomplished drummer, but it also, like, obviously he had been playing drums in the band for like 3 years, and and they've written so many new songs that he's never played on. So all of a sudden, like, I was like, but he pulled it off. They pulled it off. They always
It's amazing.
Pull it off,
and that's the kind of stuff that, like, blows my mind and just reminds me how special it is, the gift of music that musicians share with me, right? Like here is a guy that figured out some way to pull it off, to provide those folks coming to Foreign Dissent. He could have canceled.
Sure.
That would have been, easy enough.
That would have been the easy thing to do.
They figured it out, and they killed it. And everyone had a blast and got something super special that they never had seen before and will never see again.
Nobody else has ever seen and will never see again.
Yep.
And that's kind of the impetus of, like, my whole live record thing. It's like, that moment is never going to happen. That song will never be played exactly that same way ever again. This moment is it. So, you mentioned backlining. So, I have to, like, you're one person. I do a lot of shows on my own as one person, but I always have to find people to help. Like, I'm like, okay, I need someone to help me work the door, because the way this venue's set up, I can't work the door and in any way monitor the show. Sometimes I have to find sound people. I get people to help backline. I have my own drums, so I often use my own drums because I rely on myself, and I trust that I'm going to bring them because it's me. Like, how do you handle making sure that you have a proper backline? And, I mean, I'm sure Wills has a staff, but, like, who helps you manage this? And how do you find that help? And, like, did you know how much you were taking on when you started having... Because bands from foreign, like, I've toured Europe. All I ever brought were my cymbals, my snare drum, and my sticks. And maybe my bass pedal. Like, everything else was provided for me.
Yeah, I had no idea that I was going to need a backline. I don't remember who said, like, hey, are you going to have a backline? And I was like, what's the backline? Because, like, I'm not a musician. And this part of doing this event over the years has always been, like, the struggle for me. Because every now and then I'll have one of the foreign bands ask, like, what gear are you going to have? What guitar amp is it going to be? I haven't fucking figured that out yet, right? Like, I don't always have the same people that loan me gear. People loaning me gear is huge. I couldn't do this without that, especially the drum kit, which I think is the hardest thing to come by. And for years, it's been Mickey Michalik, Orlando Staple. He's been in a million bands, most recently Narcoosey, which is like a grindcore band here in town. Yeah, and he's an absolute sweetheart. Like, I don't know what I do. guitar and bass amps, I know enough people where I can find those. And more recently, I connected with Mary, who's one of the people that runs Orlando Girls Rock Camp, also in the band Double Bubble.
Yep.
Goes way back in Orlando.
Just recorded Double Bubble the other day.
Oh, sick. Yeah. Awesome. And she's been very willing to help out with gear because they've amassed so much gear for Orlando Girls Rock Camp that this year, actually, happy 2025. This year, I might use her gear for the whole backline except drums.
Okay.
So just to simplify things, because otherwise it's like this buddy of mine. I have a friend who the only reason he still keeps his guitar rig is for Foreign Dissent. He doesn't play anymore. Yeah. He's just like, yeah, Craig, it'll always be here for you. I'm like, you're a goddamn
I love
sweet
it. That's great. Do you ever have backups in case? And I say that because my old DC band did a reunion show back in January of 2023 in DC, and we played with Submachine from Pittsburgh. I see your Steelers towel back there. And Submachine's like, oh, everyone can borrow our gear. And I'm like, okay, well, Submachine's been a band for like 30 years now, so their gear is really fucking old. And the first band got up, and everything sounded great. And then my band got up to go play second, and my guitarist went to put the jack into the back of the cabinet from his head, and the jack plug fell into the cabinet. And we all looked around and said, did anyone else bring a backup cabinet? And no. There was no other cabinet. I was like,
So, until this past year, Foreign Dissent 9, there was never a backup plan. Okay. In fact, one of the years, I know Mike's guitar cabinet died. I don't know if it died before the show was over or it just didn't work after the show, but I know it wasn't working once he got it back. This year, Mary, who we were just talking about, I asked her for one guitar amp because I already had someone else bringing one. She brought two. She's like, they're small. Why not? I'll put them both on stage, and then if someone likes one more than the other, and I'm sure whatever got plugged in for that first band was probably the one that got used the whole rest of the time. But
sure.
I think now with this new access and kindness from Mary that I will probably be like, hey, can we have 2 bass rigs and 3 guitar rigs just in case?
Just to make sure.
Drums, you're just like, fuck. If something breaks, that's the way it goes.
And that's the thing, like when I do shows, I often offer mine, but I also tell people, it's like, if one of the bands wants to bring theirs, I'll bring mine as the backup. Because that way, we have something. Because I did a festival once in Sanford where I was borrowing someone's rig, and 2 songs in, their bass drum head broke. And I was like, well, I guess I'm playing without a bass drum for the rest of the set. Because it's not an easily changeable thing. And there were other drum sets there, but I'm not going to stop the whole show for me to change it out. But at least there were other stuff. And like that show in DC, someone did leave and go get us a guitar amp and come back. So the show went on. But like, I've seen enough of these things happen in my 30 years of doing this that I'm kind of like, what's my backup plan? Yeah, what am I going to do when XYZ happens?
Foreign Dissent over the years could have gone terribly if a couple rigs went down. I did not have a backup plan. I don't know if there were people at the show that could go run and get other gear for me to salvage a show or what, but knock on wood, it's never been a thing, and maybe that's just the good vibes of that night. There is this special energy when you have people that have traveled so far. Yeah, it's special.
So you mentioned the posters. They're always very unique. Do you have a singular graphic artist you use every time? Do you do them yourself?
So to answer the last question, I do not do them myself. I do some of the graphics throughout the year, but not the poster art. Year 1 through year 8, it was the same person. My buddy Joe Williams, amazing graphic artist, graphic designer, creative director. He's helped Foreign Dissent create an identity that made it seem more important than maybe I felt it was. Yep. Again, some of that my doubting myself. And so having it look like a serious thing was important to me. And so like I had mentioned early on, I had an idea for the poster for year 1 with these parachutes with the flag of each country, because I like the double entendre or whatever of the word descent and dissent. 2 different spellings, but so the parachutes, and he created that for me based on my guidance. Years 2 through 8, he did whatever he wanted.
Okay.
And for several of those years, he came up with a sort of monster character that's featured in the poster.
Yeah, like the blobby.
And yeah. I don't know if I have one of them handy over here, but yeah, I think I do. This guy.
Yeah.
Different iterations of him. So this is Foreign Dissent 8, 2 years ago. And then this past year, he was just going through some stuff and decided to step away. And so I got Christian from Talk You Off.
Okay.
Talk You Off, is that the name of the band? Gosh. They're based out of, I think, Richmond. Yep.
Yeah, I used to have someone
Holly,
from the Areolas, I think.
Yeah, Holly, who was an Orlando person. They're married, Christian. And so Christian was someone I knew was doing art, and so he did an awesome job this year. I am hoping that Joe's going to be up for jumping back in for the 10-year anniversary, and I've reached out to him because I think it would be really great to have his touch return for such an important year for the event.
Awesome, very cool. I think it's Talk It Off. Oh my God, you always
Talk It Off,
man. But yeah, like finding graphic artists has always been, kind of one of my struggles. Like I have a very talented friend played bass in the band I was just recently in. But he has a full-time job. He also does art for himself that he does for his own personal enrichment as well as stuff that he sells. So it's like, if I do 2 or 3 shows a month, he can't possibly... The stuff he makes is so creative and takes so much time. It would be an incredible burden for me to put that upon him and say, I ask you to do 3 of these at the friend rate, So it's like, I've had to start reaching out and finding other people to work with because... my skills at Canva are just only so good. And
yeah, back when I was doing shows, booking more shows when I was having to do favors. So really from 2013 to probably about 2016, besides Foreign Dissent, I was booking other shows. I did those myself. They were hack jobs. I'd see a cool mural while in Tampa. I'd take a photo of it and I'd turn that into my poster. Sure. I'd steal old movie poster art from monster movies that I find online.
I use Marvel Comics X-Men covers, and I just take those and
totally repurpose them. I hack it together. I mean, I'm dangerous enough. I published a magazine in those years. I was a one-stop shop, so I was doing everything to lay it out. So I'm a little bit good at graphic design. I just don't have an artist eye like true graphic artists have. So I've made do in the past and here and there, even with Foreign Dissent. But when it comes to the official poster, the logo, the sticker art, that's stuff that I want someone who's a pro.
Who knows what they're doing and go, oh, these are colors that mix well. Whereas I have no idea. I can cut and paste and put things together and go, all right, that looks clear. And people I get feedback, oh, that has way too much text. I'm like, but the text is needed.
I don't know. You gotta know things. I know that's been my struggle too, is asking the artist, well, can you fit this too? And they're like, do you really need it?
Oh yeah. The show that my buddy Ralph just did for me is my first Sunday matinees I'm doing at this place called Snappers in Kingston. I gave him the thing and I was like, oh, I need you to change this. I added a 5th band, so it's it'll be great. He's like, okay. And he changed it. And I could see how it change the appearance of the flyer, just having added. And I was like, hey, I actually added a post-show DJ, and he's like, so he's going back and making another change. And, at one point, it had the band's names and it had a description of their sound and where they were from. Then it got rid of the description of the sound, just had where they were from. Now it doesn't have where they're from at all anymore because he had to fit the extra 2 artists. I'm like, oh, I just fuck shit up. To me, it's just an easy change. Add 2 more words. How hard can that be?
Yeah,
but I know it's not.
It is tough, and to have a relationship with an artist where they're going to be cool with making changes. With Foreign Dissent, like I said, my lineup has never stayed the same throughout, except this past year. So I was always having to go back to Joe and be like, "Hey, Joe, so sorry, man. This band dropped. I'm adding this band. Do you mind switching it out?" Or 2 bands dropped, or but It's worked. It's worked.
And and you can change it on social media. Like you can post the new ones.
Oh yeah.
But then I've seen it. You make posters and you hand out
I
flyers.
do.
Still, like you're like me. You're so old school. You still hand out paper flyers at shows. And
I think it's critical, and I think it's going to become new school again. Like I feel like there's an energy for that kind of interaction around music connection. I don't know, like I just don't know how to do it any other way. I would feel like a failure if I didn't flyer. I mean, and posters, yeah, like once the thing changes, I might not be going out and changing a poster out.
No,
if
I'm
you
not.
show up to see that one band that ended up dropping, so sorry.
Yep, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Once I've printed it, I'll print 11 by 17 posters and 8 by 11 flyers, and I print the handbills, and I've spent all this money. I'm like, I can't go back and respend the money to reprint it.
Totally.
But I agree with you. I think like I've noticed that people are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm handing out paper flyers." And like nobody does that anymore, and people are like, "Oh, this guy takes it seriously." So I think you show that same level of like, yeah, this may be one show, but it's my show. It's the show I do every year, and I'm going to do everything in my power. And I'm going to go to shows. I'm going to pass out stuff. I'm going to do this. And I think, is that why, it's part of why it's so successful, right? Like, because you're putting in the legwork. You're not just, hey, here's a social media post. Here's 8 bands, come out.
Yeah, I mean, I lose now that I focus only on Foreign Dissent, it occupies my brain pretty much 11 months a year. And so, like, that's part of my way of channeling all the energy and passion I have for doing this event is hanging up posters, handing out flyers, figuring out other ways to get it into people's brains. Social media is only so useful, and I don't know all the right ways to connect. And as I become older and there's younger generations who I want to be into this because there's no reason they shouldn't be, I also don't know that I'm in the right spaces to connect with them. But if I'm at the shows they're at and I put a flyer in their hand, maybe they'll be like, this guy with the gray beard is cool enough for me to check out whatever the hell he just handed me.
And your shows are usually at Will's Pub. So
Always. I'll never do it anywhere else.
Yep. So you do Will's Pub, flyers there. You can flyer Grumpy's and Lou's. There's a new space in Orlando, I think, called The Spot that I never made it to, but I've seen a lot of video for. So you've got, and you got the Conduit. So you've got a lot of different venues that you can go to, plus some different house shows I've seen and stuff like that. So there's a vibrant music community in Orlando.
Big time. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of flyers I gave out this past year, but I don't know, 500-600 maybe.
Oh, that's amazing. So
yeah, I go to shows anyway, so I'm like, I'm gonna, as it gets within 2 months of Foreign Dissent, I'm that guy at the door.
I was like, do you stand at the door as people come in and hand out the flyers? Is that your usual strategy? At
the end of the show, I'll stand at the door as people leave.
Okay. So I've always debated that. Because I go to do some shows and like people are leaving before the end of the show. So I'm like, if I wait to the end, I'm going to miss them. If I do it at the beginning, I can't get them all because people keep coming in later. It's like there's this whole like, how do I get the spread? And I think it sometimes for me depends on the venue. And, I even leave some on the bars and on the tables, like the handbills all over the place. And then I kind of walk around and, I love it when I hand someone, like, oh, I already got one, I picked it up off the table. But it's like, how many times do I have to walk up to someone and hand something? Do I stand? Like, I have never quite decided what is the right formula for that.
Yeah, I'm awkward about it, so I prefer the end of show, even if that's at the risk of having lost people who left early. I try to, in particular, hit shows where the headliner is really going to be the draw.
That makes
shows
sense.
That are going to be higher attendance, hopefully sold out. So I know when that show ends, when that band says this is our last song, I go stage up at the exit. And I hope I'm, hitting everyone. I love when someone gets the flyer and they go, "Oh, Foreign Dissent, I love this event," something like that. The thing with Foreign Dissent and what I wish I had was more of an opportunity to interact. Because if you get the flyer and you don't really look at it, maybe you'll be quick to discard it, and you don't understand that these are all bands from other countries. And that when I've had a chance to talk to someone after I hand them a flyer and I tell them, in 10 seconds what it is, they're like, oh, what? Whoa, that sounds crazy. That's cool. So, I try to do that when I can, but as people are leaving a venue, you're not getting a whole lot of back and forth time.
No, that makes perfect sense. So, one thing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Foreign Dissent has spread throughout other parts of Florida, as I kind of mentioned in the intro, that there are other places, they're not calling it Foreign Dissent, so it's not inherently connected to you, but you do yours on Monday, and Fest ostensibly starts on Friday. Like, sometimes there's what people call, like, I used to do a pre-Fest show every now and then at, like, Lou's for bands that were touring through. I've done it for, like, Year of the Fist and On the Cinder and whatnot, which I said always stressed me out because I'm like, I'm already going to be gone for, like, 3 days. So, like, friends ask me for help. I'm like, all right, I will make this work. I will make it work.
So what I realized really early into doing Foreign Dissent, that these bands, if to have them play on a Monday, they're like, well, what are we going to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah.
Before they get to Gainesville. And so I just started gathering contacts. I can now help someone book a tour from Boston down to Florida, all through Florida. And so now, like, for bands, after Foreign Dissent, the run is usually after they play Foreign Dissent, they play Vero. Joe and Vero has dubbed it International Invasion.
Okay.
Super clever. And his is exactly what you're talking about. It is almost a clone of Foreign Dissent, which I'm super grateful for. The first time I asked him, he had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, hey, I have these foreign bands. Would you want? He's like, I'm just going to have foreign bands like you do. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he dubbed it International Invasion a couple of years ago. I think he's done it now 4 times maybe. And this past one had all the same bands, I think, except for one. Previous years, he's had smaller lineups. It really depends which way the bands want to go. And then after Joe's show on Tuesday, they go play Chewy's show in Tampa, St. Pete on Wednesday. And then Thursday, they go play Charlie's show in St. Augustine. And then they go to Gainesville. And so it's a way for me especially now, because I'll reach out to bands I want to play Foreign Dissent. But the first key is I have to get added to Fest. Yes. And as you know, that's not always easy.
No.
You got to either be connected or have some kind of in. But the other thing that they need is to know, can we play other shows? And I can now go to them and say, look, I've got a bunch of contacts. I can at least help you get a run in Florida, but I could help you get a run elsewhere too if you want. So, Loyal Cheaters, who played this last time, I think they did maybe 20 shows around Fest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't know how many of them were because of my contacts, but I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few. So it's a part of it. And I share those contacts with people that aren't playing Foreign Dissent. It's something I really love that I've collected, because I know, as someone who's booked tours before, I know how that's gold, that's currency, having those contacts.
And it's interesting you mentioned those contacts too, because you go back 20 years ago and I used to have an Excel spreadsheet of all the venues and bands and stuff I used to work with. And I used to share it all the time. And, lo and behold, 2008, I moved to Florida, take a couple years off. I don't know whatever happened to that spreadsheet. It's gone in the wind. It's before, like, it was Google Sheets, so it was saved to a hard drive on a laptop that I no longer have. I don't have the email that I used to email it from anymore. I don't know what that AOL email password, if it still exists. It's just gone. But the last month, I've been on winter break, and I went and I exported all the people I follow from my Instagram, and I've started clicking on every single one off the export and making a spreadsheet of bands, venues, promoters, booking agents, podcasts, record stores, record labels, and I'll be happy to share that with anyone that wants to have it once I've got it fully completed. And I'm like, oh yeah, this feels good, because you can't remember. It's Instagram and Facebook are not easily searchable, and that seems to be the easiest way people communicate now. So how do I find stuff? Bands don't even have websites anymore half the time. Maybe they have Bandcamp, but I'm not gonna. How do you keep track of all that? So do you have a spreadsheet? Is that what you use yourself now, or how do you manage all this?
I've got a Google Doc. Yeah, I have a Google Doc that's broken up. Florida section, East Coast run north to south, and then other places, because I just have random. Okay. And this is just I see someone post in the Fest Friends group on Facebook. They'll post hey, anyone looking for a show in Cincinnati, I can help you out. or maybe someone's from a band saying like, hey, here are the open dates we need filled in these cities, and I'll see people comment like, oh, I can help you out with Cincinnati, and I'll just add them to my list. Like, it's not like fully vetted. Some of these contacts are probably at this point, they might not even do shows anymore. I
Sure.
don't regularly check in on them. It's a service I provide with a lot of asterisks of like, I don't know if any of this stuff is still going to help you,
Still
but
valid.
some of
Yep.
it will for sure.
No, and I think you helped when Colin Dead went on their first tour. We had like a venue where they like burned down or something like that, and I needed a last minute one, and you responded. I was like, hey, here's some people in XYZ areas, and I was like, thank you, Craig. That's very nice of you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do that anytime I see a band post about it. And this is that thing for me that fills my heart, that makes me feel like I'm contributing to a community that has given me so much, is like that feeling of helping out. I love it so much. And Foreign Dissent is so much that, to hear these bands. And like the beauty of it is that I'm going to Fest after I do Foreign Dissent. So I'm seeing all these bands walking around multiple times, and it's like we've all fallen in love with each other. Like, there is so much joy and appreciation, and for me, that's everything.
And that, like, I think, gets to the whole heart of it all. Like, you mentioned how you found your community. I remember the very similar thing. Like, I was in high school in 92, and I was a very shy, awkward person. People would be shocked for me to say that now, but, like, punk rock community allowed me to be my true self and to, like, let go and not be afraid of being who I am. And I've always come back to punk rock community because it's what we do. And, like, what you're doing is you're literally taking that community and providing a space for it. And that's why I've always been so impressed by it, which is why I had you on here, because that's what you're doing. You are fostering the community that fostered you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I mean, from 1985, when this kid at school played me I Saw Your Mommy by Suicidal Tendencies,
Yeah.
I think he thought it would scare me, because this wasn't like a kid who was my friend.
Yeah.
And I went and biked to the record store, I don't know, that weekend, and bought that first Suicidal cassette. And that was my first, that was 7th grade for me. That was the birth of the person I would really become starting in college. In high school, it was just not, middle school and high school, there was too much bullying for me to be able to embrace the person I was. I was afraid. I felt so small, and so my hearing Descendants in 9th grade. Enjoy the record. Enjoy. That was my next one, and then my first year of college, hearing My Brain Hurts from Screeching Weasel in spring of '92. And these people. I mean, I remember their names. Chance is the kid who played me Suicidal. Ivar is my buddy who played Descendants. Jason is the guy who played me Screeching Weasel. Those 3 moments were the moments that set me up for who I became, all in specific ways that kind of broadened what I saw punk rock to be.
No, I get that. And we all have those specific, I think a lot of us have those specific things. Like, there was a guy I worked with at Roy Rogers who, like, I was buying a bunch of Anthrax tapes from him, and he threw in some Ramones, and I was like, this is odd.
Yeah.
And I had gotten a Suicidal Tendencies album for Christmas, Art of Rebellion, but I already had it. So I went to take it to Kent Mill Music, and the guy's like, try this Circle Jerks gig record. That was my very first, like, punk rock thing ever, and I was like,
That's so great.
But
Yeah,
I remember those
that.
moments. Like, I remember buying Black Flag's first 4 years at Record Convergence. Like, those are my first 3 things: Ramones, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, and then I think Megadeth covered Anarchy in the UK, so I had to buy a Sex Pistols album. So, like, those are my first 4.
Pretty good core fundamentals of punk rock. Yeah, there was this dude in 9th grade named Aaron who was the most entrepreneurial person I knew. He, for some reason, had every cool punk thing: Uniform Choice, Agnostic Front, Pro Mags, DRI, like all of these important sort of like gauntlet records of punk rock. And he had a catalog that you could go through at school, and he would dub the cassette and photocopy the liner notes and sell them. I think you were paying like maybe $3, $5. And so like, that's how I learned about Misfits. I got Walk Among Us from him and Legacy Brutality. I got Uniform Choice, Agnostic, like all of these bands that I don't think I would have discovered on my own, that he was, you know, my dealer. You know, he was the pusher man at school of the drug I wanted.
And that's brilliant that he was selling them. Like, I used to, whenever I met a buddy, I would have them come over to my house and bring all their tapes, and I would have a whole bunch of blank ones, and I'd copy everything. And you mentioned, like, the Misfits. There was this dub going around Northern Virginia of the Misfits that everybody had. Everyone had the exact same, like, mixtape of random Misfits songs. And I forget which one it was, but there was one where the volume, obviously the person had gone and, like, turned the volume up on the, when they were recording it. And I literally thought that's how the song was recorded. And then one day I finally heard it on, like, a CD. I was like, oh! Because every tape was the same. Because my buddy John had the tape, my buddy Dan, Keith, Matt, we all had the same tape. I don't know where it came from, but we all had it. So it all sounded the same. So that song was always the same. Like every car we're driving around, it's like, oh, here's that song where the volume comes up. It's kind of like what Minor Threat did with Stepping Stone, but different.
Oh, man, I love that. That is, yeah, that's very cool. And
like,
to
so
have
like
that moment where you're like, oh, wait.
This isn't how it's supposed to be. But like, there's
Right?
a community of us that just thought that's how the song was.
Yeah, I wonder if all those cassettes I listened to, because I don't think I ever went and found any other version of them. Yeah, that's a trip.
So, oh man, this has been an absolute pleasure. I don't want to take up any more of your time on a Friday. I mean, I'm sure we could just talk for like another 30, 40 minutes. But like, I'm really excited for what you're doing. When do you think you're going to have the lineup for the next Foreign Dissent laid out?
Yeah, so I've been reaching out to bands that I really want to have play, to have them start to like look into whether they can do the trip, and start reaching out to Fest and have them work some angles, you know, that kind of thing. Fest starts to confirm bands this month.
Okay.
So one of the beautiful things that happened maybe after 3 years of me doing Foreign Dissent is that Tony, who runs Fest, and has been really tolerant of me treating Foreign Dissent like it's the most important thing in the world, and you know, reaching out to him like, hey Tony, what are the foreign bands confirmed yet? Can you give me that list in advance? You know, which he always does, which is amazing. But he tells all the foreign bands when he confirms them for Fest in that email, he tells them about my show.
That's awesome.
So whereas back for Foreign Dissent 1, 2, 3, I was contacting bands usually after the first lineup announcement. Now I'll start hearing from bands probably in the next 3 weeks, who want to play it. And then I'm a little slow because I like to build a lineup that speaks to me. And certainly I'm limited by whoever's playing Fest.
Sure.
And Fest usually has anywhere from 16 to 22 foreign bands. So
Okay,
not
so you've got a fair amount to choose from.
Yeah. I usually get a half or so of the bands playing, but I'm gonna try to pick and choose the ones that resonate with me the most, and to build a lineup that I think is interesting. I don't need 8 bands that all sound like Dillinger 4, right? Like, I love Dillinger 4, but I want diversity of sound. I want diversity of band members and what they speak to, and so, you know, unfortunately, some of that is controlled based on what Fest has.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll start putting together a lineup. I'll probably have bands confirmed by February, March. Usually, I make my first announcement the day Fest makes their first announcement. Obviously, I cannot announce anything until Fest.
Sure.
And so this past year was a unique one where, you know, Fest usually does 2 big announcements, April and then June or July. And this past year, none of the Foreign Dissent bands were announced in the April announcement, which totally threw me off, because I have like this whole plan that I do 2 announcements too. And so and I had kind of committed to an announcement in April, but then I was like, hey everyone, sorry, like none of the bands have been announced yet. So, but yeah, my goal will be to have a lineup locked in by hopefully March, early April. First announcement. I think they usually do 420, April 20th for those who aren't getting high, and then second announcement will be in July when they announce their second announcement.
That's super rad. So
hoping for some big bands, but being the 10th year, I'm probably going to do shirts. So I haven't done shirts since the 5th year. So.
Okay, that's super rad. And I find it interesting too that you like don't just wait for bands to be booked by Fest. You encourage bands to contact, Fest and Tony to get on it. I don't know how effective that is. Like, I've obviously tried many years and never played Fest, but then I also like had a band I'm putting out their record next month from Albany called The Snorts. And like in April, they said, "Hey Scott, do you have any contact with Fest?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, here's the guy. Give it a whirl." And their month was like, "Yeah, we're playing." I was like, "What the fuck? How'd that happen?"
Yeah. No, I've had some pretty good success. There was one year, Tony never asked for it, but each year I send him a list of foreign bands I think he should have on Fest.
Okay.
Bands that I've already talked to who already have an interest. I'm not going to go put some band out there who I haven't even interacted with and they have no idea. And there was one year, I think it was the year before COVID, where he was like, "Okay, this band and this band, go ahead and let them know they can play Fest." And I'm like, "Wait, you want me to tell them?"
Wow.
And yeah, he was totally like, "Go ahead and tell them." And 2 years ago, Fjord, I got Fjord on Fest because I had asked people like, "What foreign bands would you like to have play Fest?" And this band Fjord from Germany kept getting mentioned. There were like 3 or 4 people that mentioned them. No other band got mentioned more than twice. And I listened to them, and they're this heavy, kind of hardcore, metally, just incredible, sick band, but really big in Germany. And so I wasn't sure, but I talked to them. I had to talk to their management. I never love having to deal with management because it's less personal, and it doesn't happen that often. But they're a big enough band. I mean, they sell out 1,000 capacity everywhere in Germany, and yeah, I got them on, which was huge. Maybe the best set that's ever played Foreign Dissent.
Wow.
If you haven't watched that set on YouTube, just go search Fjord, FJORT, Foreign Dissent. The full set's on YouTube. Absolutely sick. And the dudes ended up they came and hung out the Sunday before, drank every beer that we had here. They were the most fun. We had a blast. They came with a sound guy and a front of house guy and their manager. The most amount of support, and everyone was lovely. It was not like uncomfortable, weird, like management or any of that kind of thing. We all had so much fun. It was really cool. So, I try really hard to find bands throughout I'm always, I mean, if you see my top releases for 2024, half of them are foreign bands because, the algorithms at this point, for one thing, are feeding me a lot of foreign punk bands, but I actively seek it out too. And so, I'm messaging bands all the time to say like, "Hey, here's the deal. I want you to play my thing. Here's how it works. Are you interested?"
After this is over, hit me with your address, and I will mail you my 2 international releases. So I did. I did 2 releases with Costa Rican bands. So with the support
bands?
Of Altercados and Expunka, and Sentido Común and Chuck Jones.
Oh, okay. Oh, neat.
So they were both co-released by Punk Rock Mag. So, and I'm doing a German artist with a split with an American artist coming out this spring. The American artist is Mark Allen Prince. He is a singer-songwriter. He used to play drums in Some Kind of Nightmare on a run. And then the other band is Red at Night from Germany.
Okay, cool.
So,
I haven't heard of them.
I would just send you that album's not out yet, but I'll email you I'm going to email you the digital file so you can just listen to it.
Yeah, awesome. Then I'm going to post it on SoundCloud. I'm just kidding. We had one Costa Rican band play called Carousel. Like Foreign Dissent 3 or 4. But that's the only band from Costa Rica we've had. Anytime you hear about a foreign band that you think's cool, send it my way. I'm always got my ear out for something cool, different, neat. I want more hardcore bands. There have been very few hardcore bands from other countries come to Fest. So this past year we had Regrowth from Italy, which was Amazing. I was so happy to get to hear and see like some screamo hardcore on stage for Foreign Dissent for the first
I
time.
think I'd have to go back and I for a little while I was doing reviews on my blog, and then I got overwhelmed because one, I just got hit up with so many people asking me to do reviews, and
But
two, I found it got hard for me to give an honest review that didn't sound like it was carbon copied. There's always so many ways I can say, like, those crunchy guitars. Like, I was like, I found, like, because I don't want
I
to
get
give,
that.
I don't want to give insincere reviews because I don't have time for that, and I don't want to just trash a band because I don't spend my time. So I only reviewed bands I actually liked, but at the same time, there's a certain amount of creativity in writing a good review, and if you're doing like 10 reviews in a week, you just run out of the ability to like properly assess things. But I used to get a lot of foreign bands. And I would often say, "Oh, you should definitely play Fest," and then talk to Foreign Dissent as well. Like, it's in my blogs how many times I mention, like, if there's an international band that I thought would be great at Fest, and I'd be like, go to Fest, and before you do that, hit Foreign Dissent. So that was a pretty
Yeah,
common comment I used to
I
make.
love that. I love that. Yeah, Marshall hit me up the other day at a show and he was like, "Hey Craig, this band from Poland hit me up about playing Foreign Descent because they thought maybe I ran it." And but I'm saying, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool that someone doesn't know who runs Foreign Descent, but thinks it might be Marshall at Montgomery Drive." I was kind of flattered by that for
Yeah.
some weird reason, but and then they sounded great. They're a super cool band. So yeah, you never know who's gonna tip me off to like my next favorite foreign band. So
All
bring it
right.
on.
Well, once again, I know we kept chatting a bit longer there, but there's just so much we could talk
Love it.
about.
Yeah,
Craig,
dude, this has been so cool.
you have been an amazing guest. I love everything you're doing. I love what you've done. I can't wait to see what you do going forward, whether it's Foreign Descent going on for the next 20 years or something else. But like your energy, your passion for supporting the community, I think it's inspiring to me, and I hope everyone that listens is as inspired as I am. Much love and much respect to all that you do.
Thank you, Scott. And look, man, with you inviting me shows exactly that you do the same thing. You're all about supporting the community. You've always done it with those live recordings. I've always thought it's so cool that you do that and capture those moments to support these bands. Learning more about what you do makes me even just love it more. So I hope that this podcast turns out to be exactly what you were hoping it would be. And I love that you're giving space for those of us who feel as passionate about the community as any band member, but maybe don't get a chance to talk about what we do in the scene. So I appreciate that, man.
All right. Much love. And thank you for everyone that was listening out there in Podcastia land. This has been Craig Mazer and Foreign Descent. And we're going to close out, and you'll hear a song of his choice from one of his favorite international bands that either has played, will play, or we'll see what happens. But thank you for tuning in, and have a great fucking day.
Thanks, Scott.